Hello, my name is Mr. Chipman, and I teach biology and AP biology at Murray High School in Murray, Kentucky. This is 5.8 impacts of overfishing. This is AP Environmental Science, rolling through Unit 5, which is a pretty long unit. Lots of stuff going on in this unit. Let's talk about overfishing. Overfishing is exactly what it sounds like it is. It's fishing too much. Right? And so what causes overfishing? There's a couple things that we're going to look at. We talked about the tragedy of the commons early in this unit, and so that is the primary thing that's going on here. Obviously, we are over-exploiting these fisheries. We do not need as much fish as we catch, and so that's causing a problem. What has allowed this? Well, we've increased technology. We're able to fish more efficiently because we can go find the fish. We can just literally see them. And sonars and things like this used to be more military type things, but now they're everybody type things. People have sonars. There's a high global demand for fish. Fish is a major protein source worldwide, and so this is driving an unsustainable harvest. The ocean does not have an infinite amount of fish in it, seemingly infinite, but not infinite, and it will eventually run out of fish, and that could be a problem. There's another word here that I learned this time, and this is called bycatch. Bycatch is when something else is caught. Non-target species, sort of like a turtle or a dolphin or a bird caught in a net. This isn't good either. Killing things that aren't meant to be killed by I love that the turtles are all on this like a trot line or something. That's what I would call it, but it's probably called something else. You get the idea, right? This bycatch is something that you've probably heard about before, and these animals, when caught, are usually killed and thrown back in because it's just, once they're tangled in a net and out of the water for a long period of time, it's hard to deal. It's hard to keep them alive. And another thing that it leads to this sort of thing is government subsidy. Governments will pay fishing companies a lot of money to fish. Even though stocks are declining, the fish stocks are declining, they're still paid a lot of money to go out and find fish. Governments want to keep their workforce fed, and anyway, moving on. So let's look at some of the consequences of overfishing. Biodiversity loss. I'd love to have like a giant poster of this in my room. It's so cool, just the colors and the things. I don't know what any of that text says, but I'm sure it's interesting. Very, very cool picture. And so imagine here you have this giant food web, right, showing the diversity of life in an ocean ecosystem. And if you just take a couple of those out, what happens? Well, then a couple more go out. The ecosystem starts to collapse, right? It decreases stability. And so when we talk about biodiversity loss, you're talking about a decrease of stability in an ecosystem, which can lead to ecosystem collapse, meaning the whole thing just sort of falls in on itself and dies, which wouldn't be good. And overfishing is going to increase the likelihood of something like this to occur. The idea that one thing leading to another thing is sort of a cascade, right? It's called a trophic cascade. This is a very common word anymore in ecological studies. Removing key predator or prey species destabilizes the food web. If you get rid of the sharks, then you increase mid-level predators, and those mid-level predators eliminate all the prey, and then they die, and then everybody dies. Right? This is the idea that if you get rid of one thing, it sort of has this cascading effect, which is not good. Obviously, you don't want that to happen, but overfishing can cause that. Of course, economic disruption. The idea that we would disrupt our own economies in order to, that's what's happening, right? The idea that you would fish way too much and then destroy your own economy, particularly those economies that thrive and that need this more than others do. Of course, food security is a big thing too. When you have billions of people that rely on fish, and if you have less of it, there's less people eating, or there's people eating less. You understand the idea. So there are some solutions here. Obviously, fish lists is one of the big solutions, having quotas on and catch limits. Recognizing these ideas of marine protected areas, which you have a map of here. We have these fully protected zones, less protected zones. These are probably zones, particularly coastal areas or areas that are more heavily fished. You can see a couple of them that are not coastal, but are just known to be ripe with fish, and they're having to be more protected now because they're just dying, right? They're in risk of collapse, and so you have this sort of thing. Aquaculture, which is a video, we'll do this video later, specifically on aquaculture and the idea of sort of fish farms, raising fish this way. Choosing sustainable seafood as consumers is another example of this. There are some fish species that are more sustainable than others, and choosing to eat those as well. There's a fish that's having a bad day. This is a bluefin tuna. Bluefin tuna are an example of a critically overfished species, and it's largely due to sushi demand, which is kind of crazy, right? The popularity of sushi has increased mostly with internet sort of thing, and it's good. Sushi is good, right? But if everybody wants sushi, and then nobody's going to get sushi eventually, or at least bluefin fish sushi, because it's critically endangering their stock, which is not good. This is an example of the oyster harvests from the 1930s to the 2011. I used to live in Maryland. I lived in Maryland up until 2012. And we had oysters while we were there. But when we had oysters, they were a lot scarce, more scarce than they were back in the early 1900s to mid-1900s, right? Why is that? Well, overfishing, tragedy of the commons. It's obvious, right? And oysters play a very important role in ecosystem stability, filtration of ecosystems, ecosystem function. It's a story that tells itself, right? It's not hard to figure out this sort of thing, but some of the vocab I think is important for you to sort of understand, like bycatch and all that kind of thing. But this is not a hard concept. Coastal community experiences economic decline after collapse of its cod fishery. Of course it does. Which environmental concept best explains this? This is overfishing, right? That's all we're looking for here. And we're gonna go find it. A, B, C, D. Regulations successfully reduced fishing pressure, allowing no. What? This is just odd. B is going to be correct. I see overfishing, and I'm just going to go with that. I see aquaculture and bycatch. Bycatch is not something that they're experiencing here because that has to do with catching things that are not the target species. Aquaculture is the opposite of what we're dealing with here. B is the correct answer. This was a too easy question, but I hope the video was helpful. 5.8 in the books. We're moving forward with Unit 5. Thanks for watching.